Of the 2,000 beagles at this laboratory in southern China, 2 are making headlines.
These are the ones you are caring about most.
Yeah.
Scientists led by Dr. Lai Liang-shui at the Guangzhou Institutes of Biomedicine and Health claim they're the first to successfully alter the genetic makeup of dogs.
This muscle is much stronger.
Yeah.
They doubled the muscle mass of these beagles through the process of gene editing. We knocked out a gene which would ordinarily stop muscles from growing, so these dogs became much more muscular, Lai told us.
Scientists here tell us the idea is not to create designer pets, but rather to mimic diseases like Parkinson's in these dogs, and then treat them in an effort to find a cure.
Beagles are often used in research against the wishes of animal rights advocates. Scientists at a lab in Shenzhen used similar technology to create micro-pigs, selling them as pets for $1,600 each. Another lab has drawn worldwide condemnation for carrying out genetic editing tests on human embryos. Some major scientific journals would not even publish the work.
Critics have called China the Wild West of gene editing. Is that fair?
I don't think it's fair. What we do at our lab is for the betterment of humankind, he added. I don't think anyone should experiment on humans before ethical questions are answered. Dr. Lai, a dog lover, insists they need to improve accuracy. Of the more than 60 embryos they gene-edited, only 2 were successful.
The House has approved a resolution that condemns the Islamic State's wide-scale murder of Christians and other minorities as genocide. The resolution passed 393 to 0. It pressures the Obama administration to officially declare the Islamic State's bloodshed against Christians in Iraq and Syria as genocide. Such a declaration could require more action by the U.S. government against ISIS. Secretary of State John Kerry is set to make that determination as early as this week.
Muslim migrant melts off wife's face with boiling oil. This is the very tolerant, inclusive culture that we're importing into the West. This is our cultural enrichment, pouring boiling oil over women's faces. When Homer, the 48-year-old wife of Muhammad, pulled back the shower curtain after her husband told her to have a look at what he was holding, the pot of hot, boiling oil in his hands was not what she expected. In a matter of seconds, her face was gone, melted, and the right hand she raised to protect herself permanently fused shut. She was left with burns over 44% of her body, scarred forever to restore her husband's honor. So basically, the husband got jealous that she was interested in another man, no proof that she'd even had any contact or sexual relations with him. And of course, the rational solution to that, if you believe these tenets, is to pour hot boiling water over that woman's face. That's a completely reasonable response, I guess you would agree. Of course, not a peep from feminists, nothing whatsoever.
Voters in Germany delivered a strong rebuke of Chancellor Angela Merkel over her open-door policies on immigration. They threw their support behind a conservative party called the AfD that holds a strong line on immigrants.
I think we have to learn in Germany to call something by its name. Sadly, for a long time, we've built a system of political correctness. We are forbidding a lot of thinking and speaking.
The AfD party was formed just 3 years ago and has surged in popularity following Merkel's decision to allow millions of immigrants into Germany.
This week, water fountains were shut down in city schools due to lead contamination. As Jerika Duncan reports, evidence suggests officials knew about this problem for years.
A memo from the district sent on August 30th of 2014 mandates all schools run and flush each water fountain for 2 minutes daily before school opens. The same steps applied for cafeteria faucets prior to food prep usage. And principals were instructed to tell students and staff to run fountains for at least 30 seconds before drinking the water. Annual water contamination tests at Newark's public schools were conducted between December and February. On Wednesday, the district turned off water at 30 schools after results revealed unsafe lead levels. Evilise Menzi's son attends one of them.
I send my son to school every day to be safe. This is his safe haven, and then lead is in his water.
Lead in drinking water should not exceed 15 parts per billion. At Bard High School, one sample had 558. Branch Brook Elementary, 194, while another elementary school tested at 193. Sabrina Oliver says her children's school was impacted.
It's water. I mean, I never thought the water was good in Newark anyways, but that's alarming.
Health officials say it's not Newark's water that's the problem. It's when lead from old pipes and fixtures leach into the water, similar to what happened in Flint, Michigan. Too much lead can damage the nervous system, and young children are most at risk.
Last night, Chip Reed and producer Jennifer Janisch broke the story that the two top executives at the nation's largest veterans charity were fired. A CBS News investigation had revealed that Wounded Warrior Project spends as much as half of the hundreds of millions of dollars it receives in donations on overhead, including lavish parties. Other veterans charities have overhead costs as low as 10%.
I'll be damned if you're going to take hardworking Americans' money and drink it and waste it.
When we spoke with former Wounded Warrior Project employee Eric Millett in January, he was furious about what he called the charity's lavish spending at the expense of veterans programs. But his anger has subsided now that the charity's top two officials, Stephen Nardizzi and Al Giordano, have been fired.
It feels good. It really does. And I didn't do it for me. I did it for all the veterans that Wounded Warrior Project claims to serve.
And the United Nations Children's Fund says 1 in 3 Syrian children have spent their entire lives in war as the conflict reaches its 5th year this week. According to the UNICEF report titled No Place for Children, the Syrian conflict has created 2.4 million child refugees. An alarming trend is that children are also being recruited to fight, with some as young as 7. The Daesh terror group has been known to release horrific footage of children carrying out executions. Last year alone, 400 youngsters were killed in the conflict. Another key concern is that some 2.8 million kids cannot go to school because of the violence. Based on UN figures, the conflict has killed more than 270,000 people.
What may be a major intelligence coup could upend plans by ISIS to attack this country. David Martin reported last night that an ISIS defector gave Britain's Sky News thousands of documents containing the names and addresses of ISIS terrorists.
The documents are forms each foreign fighter had to fill out when entering ISIS-controlled territory in Iraq and Syria. They are considered authentic by Germany's interior minister, who says his police obtained copies of their own. They will be shared with other intelligence agencies, including the CIA and FBI. CBS News contributor and former deputy CIA director Michael Morell sees no reason to doubt the documents' authenticity and says they will undermine the ability of ISIS to conduct attacks in the U.S. and other countries.
If you're ISIS now, and you know that Western intelligence has their hands on these, you can't send those people back to conduct an attack because you know they're going to be picked up as soon as they cross that border.
Each form has 23 blocks asking for name, alias, date of birth, marital status, country of residence, education, profession, and phone number. One block asks fighters to choose a position to apply for, and according to an analysis of one batch of documents, 120 of 1,700 recruits volunteered for suicide missions. There are said to be at least 10 Americans on the list. One of them, Douglas Robert, the alias for an Illinois man named Douglas MacArthur McCain, was already known to Western intelligence and has since been killed on the battlefield.
The guys who went that you didn't know, that's the value of this because it puts new people on your radar.
Scientists are fighting against the Zika virus with a controversial new method. They want to release genetically modified male mosquitoes carrying a deadly gene. It would make their offspring die before they're old enough to bite. The FDA says the modified mosquitoes are not dangerous to humans or the environment, and in Brazil, scientists are already using these mosquitoes. But critics worry about the side effects.
When you open this Pandora box, it's no way to recall this mosquito.
Russian President Vladimir Putin once fed the dolphins at this aquarium near Vladivostok. Now the leader is looking to recruit several of the marine mammals for his military. According to state media, the Russian Defense Ministry is looking for 5 bottlenose dolphins for military duty. Specifically, they want 3 males and 2 females between 3 and 5 years old with perfect teeth and no physical impairments. They're willing to pay about 350,000 rubles or about $5,000 for each dolphin. Dolphins have been used in wartime before by Soviet Russia during the Cold War and more recently by the US, helping search for underwater mines in the Persian Gulf during the Iraq War. The US military has also trained dolphins and sea lions to perform tasks like detecting enemy submarines and to patrol the waters around naval bases, protecting against potential terror threats. But the program is controversial. One of the world's leading experts on dolphins says that using the sea mammals for military purposes is purely exploitation.
These are very bright, self-aware, highly social animals. And everything that they experience in a captive environment, and in particular in a military environment, is at odds with the kind of natural environment that they really need to thrive.
Any aquatic recruits would be likely sent to the Crimean port city of Sevastopol, home to a combat dolphin training center, where they could someday become super soldiers or even super spies for the Russian Navy.
Military drone technology is back in the headlines. Recently, SCO, a subdivision of the U.S. military with ties to DARPA, released a video of micro drones being launched from an F-16 fighter at 430 miles per hour. The Washington Post article titled, "Veil of Secrecy Lifted on Pentagon Office Planning Avatar Fighter and Drone Swarms" reads, "Canisters containing the tiny aircraft descend from jets on parachutes, before breaking open, allowing wings on each drone to swing out and catch the wind. Inch-wide propellers on the back provided propulsion as they found one another and created a swarm." Paul Scher, director of the Warfare Initiative at the Center for a New American Security, wrote in his 2014 paper, "Robotics on the Battlefield, Part 2, The Coming Swarm," that swarms of robotic systems can bring greater mass, coordination, intelligence, and speed to the battlefield, enhancing the ability of warfighters to gain a decisive advantage over their adversaries. The announcement also represents another step toward total autonomous military robotics, a technology that top experts such as Elon Musk and Max Tegmark have been warning scientists to think twice about. SCO also said in the same announcement they have successfully developed and tested Avatar flight technology. Our new project, not previously reported, is called Avatar and calls for the Pentagon to pair high-tech 5th-generation fighter jets like the F-22 Raptor and F-35 Joint Strike Fighter with unmanned versions of older jets like the F-16 Fighting Falcon and the F-A-18 Hornet, which will be flown without a pilot for the first time. Imagine this technology in the hands of the same government that was also forced to admit this week that it had been using domestic drones for domestic surveillance operations. USA Today filed the story, "Pentagon admits it has deployed spy drones over the U.S., detailing the fact that for the past decade, the U.S. military has been using UAS, or unmanned aerial surveillance technology, domestically, in spite of our Fourth Amendment right to privacy from the government. The article assures us that domestic surveillance operations were completely lawful. It also states that the Pentagon report made public through an FOIA request did not provide details of any domestic spying missions. So when they claim their domestic spying operations are legal, we'll just have to take their word for it." Kurt Nimmo adds in his article, "Pentagon admits to using military drones to spy on Americans. The Posse Comitatus Act prohibits the military from operating on American soil, and that the Environmental Protection Agency used drones in Nebraska and Iowa in 2012.
I have 2 words for you. Predator drones. You will never see it coming.